Carrie Fields.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Carrie Fields, and I'm a resident of Enfield, Connecticut. From the summer of 2015 until fall of 2017, I've been going back and forth to Connecticut Family Court fighting on the behalf of my daughter. My story is quite complex and extensive, but due to the limit of 3 minutes, I will give you a brief synopsis of my experience with the Connecticut Family Court system, the GAL, and all parties, including judges, not following Public Act 14-3. My journey with the family court system stemmed from an ex parte motion that was put in place due to my daughter's statements of her father sexually abusing her. Due to the nature of the case, Sharon Frell was appointed guardian ad litem for my daughter's case and was required to fulfill all duties listed in the court-ordered form. I was never presented with the 15 GALs to choose from. No sliding scale option was ever offered to me, and my financial information was never considered when obtaining the GAL. Nevertheless, Sharon Frell became my daughter's guardian ad litem without undergoing the proper procedures of appointment in accordance with Public Act 14-3. Even though the court checked off that I qualified for a sliding scale rate, I was still being charged $2.50 an hour, and no methodology was used to form this exceeded amount. Despite the errors in calculating GAL fees, the GAL failed to fulfill her duties listed in the court-ordered form. She did not conduct home visits. She did not confer with professionals or my daughter's pediatrician. She did not gather DCF reports or CPS records, medical reports, therapist records, and more. She violated almost all of the GAL code of conduct and failed to contact DCF when my daughter disclosed the sexual abuse to her. Sharon Frell also failed to inform the court that my daughter's therapist stated no visits. This particular therapist had over 10 years of experience with trauma and sexual abuse cases. I asked for the GAL to be removed on several occasions, but the court stated denied and that I had no standing. Due to the nature of the case, which is sexual abuse against a minor child, Connecticut Family Court lacked subject matter jurisdiction and territorial jurisdiction. This was a criminal case that happened in the state of New York, but entertained in family court. Due to time, I cannot go into detail about the underhanded actions, subversive activity, extortion of money, threats made, retaliation, violation of laws, and more. However, my evidence of the GAL's negligence, fraud of the court, abuse of discretion, perjury, and obstruction of justice exists and is just waiting for the right person to analyze this case as a whole. I wrote various letters to judicial parties. I met and spoke with Senator John Kissel on 2 occasions in his office. I shared my story at the last public hearing in 2017, and I recently went before the appellate court pro se. But what happens if I do not prevail in my appeal? When all of these laws were violated, who do I turn to? Even though Public Act 14-3 was put in place in October 2014, my case is extreme evidence that Public Act 14-3 is not being followed within family courts, and legislators need to do more to fulfill the checks and balances of all judicial parties. I am not only demanding a reevaluation and investigation of my case, but I'm demanding justice and extreme consequences against all parties, including judges who handled my daughter's case without proper legal proceedings and jurisdictions to cover up the failures, the negligence, affiliation, and corruption of court parties. My case calls for a federal investigation.
I mean, we don't mind that you clap because this is being recorded, but try to keep the volume down, please. Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. I have a quick question. You talked about that they did not offer you or talk to you about the sliding scale, and you were paying $250. For how long were you paying that fee?
It started in July of 2015. They checked off the box that I qualified for a sliding scale rate, but they were charging $250 an hour, and I didn't know anything about Bill 494 back then. I found that out later on. But once I found it out, I explained that to the trial court. I even submitted my financial affidavit on several occasions, and still the appropriate corrections were not made. And in fact, the judge stated if I didn't pay the GAL, he would impose sanctions over $2,000 plus if I didn't pay. And it was the court's error, not mine.
So at what point did the court find out that there was actually an error? At what point during, can you give me a timeline? I'm just curious to know.
The trial court acknowledged that there was a possible error in 2017, September of 2017. And when he was fully aware of that, he still continued to have me pay the GAL towards a bill that was close to $10,000.
Thank you. Representative Gonzalez?
Thank you. And I do remember you. You came to testify that last time.
Yes.
You and your mom,
My
right?
mom, yes.
Yeah, okay. And I also remember that your mother was helping you with the bills.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Now, 2015, they find out that it was an error. Or you was paying since 2015, but they find out 2017 that it was an error.
That it was an error.
So that means that you was paying for 2 years, $250 an hour, and it was an error.
It was an error,
And
yes.
they haven't fixed that.
They haven't fixed it. I just went before the appellate court with all of my issues and even explaining the jurisdiction issues, that they really didn't have any jurisdiction over this case because it was a criminal issue. And not only that, the crime happened in the state of New York. My daughter opened up to several professionals in the state of Connecticut, and nothing was done to protect my daughter. In fact, they threatened to take her away from me and give her to the father who she stated sexually abused her. The GAL never reported the therapist's concerns to the court. The therapist stated that the GAL ignored her, and she specifically told her no visits. But the GAL went against the therapist and told the judge, and so just because she wasn't reporting the information, the therapist decided to write a letter to the court. So the GAL had her removed due to breach of confidentiality. But according to Bill 494, anything that a GAL gets is not subject to attorney-client confidentiality.
So that means we gotta fix that, huh? How old was your daughter when she was sexually abused?
It came out in January of 2015. So she was 3 going on 4.
And she's living with you right now?
I have custodial custody of her, but she still has weekend visits with her father.
Any proof that she was sexually abused?
The doctor testified, the therapist testified, but like I said, it was in the wrong court, so it wasn't a matter of guilt or innocence, but there was enough evidence to prove that this very well did happen to my daughter.
Can you tell me who was the judge?
Judge Gerald Adelman.
Yeah.
And the GAL failed to fulfill every duty listed in the section. Not one duty did she ever fulfill, and Judge Adelman put in his orders that she did an admirable job.
Who was the GAL?
Sharon Frell.
So, right now you went to appellate court, now you have to come back to the...
I had my appeal January 17th, so I'm just operating on faith right now that it rules in my favor, because I was able to quote every law from Public Act 14-3 and have that as my standing ground. And even the jurisdiction, the fact that Connecticut had family court had no business taking over this case once a disclosure was made. And actually my daughter first disclosed it to the GAL, and she never reported it to DCF. In fact, she interfered with the investigation.
So what is the situation with DCF right now?
I'm sorry?
The situation with DCF, did they involved in that?
They're not in, they were involved, and they received medical records, doctor records, therapists, and still nothing was done.
Nothing was done.
Nothing was done.
Are you working right now?
Yes.
Okay, so right now, how much you gotta pay now for?
I only get paid $19 an hour.
And how much the court is charging you, or not the court, but the GAL?
Judge Adelman wanted me to pay her $225 a month, but in the beginning it was $250 an hour.
So right now you're paying $225 by Judge Edelman.
I'm not paying it.
Okay. Well, I remember your case, and I know it's a sad case. I'm so sorry that you have to go through this. We have the court system, and we think that, people that have to go to court, it's a shame that they don't get, what they deserve, that the treatment, they're not being fair. And I criticize that all the time.
Yes.
And I'm so sorry that you're going through this.
Yes.
Then you got my number.
Yes.
Right, my information.
Thank you.
Stay in touch
Thank
with me.
you.
Thank you.